is yet another Caregivers Bakery show, and these have been amazing. Our our guests have been so filled with knowledge and so alive and so willing to share their stories, as have you all been willing to be with us and to add commentary in the chat box. I'm CJ Golden. The little sign at the bottom of your screen lets you know that. There are days when I'm so exhausted that I have to wear a little name tag that tells me I'm CJ Golden. But it is so, this has been so worthwhile. If this is sounding like the end of a season, yeah. Next week will be our last show for season 1, our last Caregivers Bakery, and then mid-June we will have our last Sweet Spot, where we take a hiatus, where you will tell us what you liked, what you would rather see, what you would like to see, and the Caregivers Bakery Facebook page will stay alive, and we'll be back with our shows mid-September. In your chat box, please, what I would like to see is you calling to a friend or a colleague or somebody who would glean much from knowing about these shows. Put an ampersand down, put that person's name. They'll get the notification that'll say, hey, Caregivers Bakery. Also, I like you, please. Give us commentary. If you have questions of today's guest, give us a question. I'll discuss it with her. And today's guest is Ashley Voth. I'm going to bring her on right now. There she is. There's Ashley. Hi.
Hi, CJ.
Ashley is a young woman, as you can see, um, who had cancer. She's a cancer survivor. She is a stroke survivor. She had that stroke during brain surgery at all of age 26. She found yoga and mindfulness practice to bring her back to her physical and spiritual self. And she now works with other stroke victims, young stroke victims, working with Reiki and yoga and mindfulness to help them recover from the trauma. I'm not going to give you any more background. I'm going to introduce Ashley. I'm going to let her come on. I'm going to let her tell you her story. Ashley Voth, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me, CJ.
It's so you're such a light. I love that. I love that smile and that gleam that comes from you. You're just there. If I'm ever feeling low, can I just call you just to see your smile?
Absolutely.
Okay, there we go.
Absolutely. And I love your energy too. That was one thing I was noting. I was really anticipating this interview. I just love the vibe you have. So you can definitely call me.
Thank you. Thank you. We're such a team. Ashley, please, I only gave a brief introduction into your medical history. If you're comfortable doing so, please fill us in and let us know. Age 26, brain surgery? Come on.
Yes. Absolutely. I feel comfortable with that. So I would say for me, it began where I started noticing things were different and something was up, was probably 25 is when I started noticing what would be seizures. But at the time, I wasn't familiar with seizures specifically and just thought I was having hot flashes. And and
It's too young for any of that.
and that's exactly what people would say. I'd say I felt like I was having a hot flash, and people would say, "Oh, you're too young for hot flashes." So through doctor's appointments, after doctor's appointments, I got sent for enough testing that then they found a brain tumor. And when they found the brain tumor, it was, from what they could see, the characteristics seemed non-cancerous. So it wasn't anything super urgent to remove, or so they thought. And there was a new surgical suite being built in Winnipeg, and I was set to have surgery in there that was at the time considered elective. And this surgery was being done in hopes of stopping the seizures, so a seizure relief for the long term, and I was open to that.
Mm-hmm.
So went in for the surgery about a year later, maybe a little bit less than a year, and then yeah, during surgery is when the stroke happened. And even during surgery, I don't think they realized that a stroke had happened. I came out of the surgery with paralysis in my right side, and they thought that I had had seizures during surgery. So then it took until the next day before I went for scans, and in those scans they found out that it had been a stroke. So, and that was a little bit tough to take.
Yeah.
I didn't have an understanding of strokes whatsoever. I didn't know what recovery would look like, what recovery would involve, and so it started at the first hospital where it had the surgery, and then yeah, rehab continued from there.
And what gave you the strength? You didn't know where you would end up. You didn't know what this process was going to look like. You didn't know what the future was going to look like. And yet, I feel from you an inner strength, an inner resolve that kept you going even then. Or am I wrong? Am I incorrect? I mean, there had to have been times when you were concerned. Oh, that's quite a word. When you felt like, is where am I going? Um,
And I think there was definitely a balance. I've said before in talks that I think it was a little bit of a blessing that I came out of it so doped up that it kind of like slowly came into my realization, like what this all involves, what it would all involve, and like what life was going to look like. So when I first came out of surgery, I was like really foggy, and from the surgery, from the drugs, everything. So it was just like, it was kind of autopilot as far as just do what you can. Like, okay, if we're gonna go here, we're gonna go here. If we need to go to this appointment, we need to go to this appointment, and then slowly the realization came, and it kind of like sunk in as to what reality looked like. And there too, that's where I think that balance was of, yeah, definitely having challenging times, having tough times. There were days that I definitely didn't feel hopeful, didn't feel strong, and didn't feel like I could do the next day, that I could do the next week. It was something that was definitely there. And I think that I saw today actually just one kind of saying that, or phrase that touched, like connected with that phase of my life. And it was that being positive doesn't mean you need to be happy all the time.
ha ha ha. Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's when you have bad times or bad days, it's knowing that it will get better. And and that I think is important, and that I connected with then, because it was, in the moment, definitely a big adjustment and a struggle, and there was ebb and flow. Some days were worse than others, but that that was one thing that was really relayed to me as far as information goes, is that with stroke there is that hope with recovery, that there will be brighter days and there will be lighter days. So
And you chose to be, it's interesting because I often talk about caregivers are told, be strong. Nobody really says what be strong means. Does be strong, which is what you're, I think, saying as well. Does be strong mean you don't cry? Does be strong mean you don't have bad days? Does be strong mean you no, in my mind, which is what you're saying, be strong means you are going to have those tough days, and you're going to live through them, and you're going to fight through them, and you're going to allow yourself the emotions that need to come forth, and then you're
mhm.
going to move ahead. And you did your be strong was taking, as I hear, the form of mindfulness. Um, were you always were you always somebody who believed in the necessity to get through our lives with mindfulness? And what does that mean to you? And, as a practitioner of Reiki and yoga now, did you always practice that? Did you always believe? Um, go for it. It's an open ended question, isn't it? And you can go anywhere you want with it.
Okay, well, I think as far as always, I would say I've always been intuitive and connected with the spiritual aspect, and that kind of the core values of yoga and Reiki and that avenue. I definitely haven't always practiced it. I started yoga probably about a year before surgery,
Hmm.
when things started, and I needed that therapeutic sanctuary space, that space to go and rest, and allow the whole body and mind to rest. Among that, that was in the year of the tests and the year of the results and the year of uncertainty. So
Mm.
that was the time that I really got into yoga. and and I clearly remember too that after the stroke happened, I was convinced that I would never do yoga again.
Mm.
And I was devastated about that, because it was something that had been a journey that I had seen milestones. I had seen how far I had come in a year. I had seen how goals could be achieved. I had other goals. I still had places that I wanted to be with that, and to think that it was no longer available was was devastating. And and then after the stroke, I really needed that therapeutic value, and that, again, that sanctuary, but in different ways. There was that, like we talked about, the challenges and the struggle, both like physical, mental, and emotional. And that is where I found and connected with yoga and Reiki, and just being that kind of that home base that I could come to at any point, and didn't need to actively pursue anything anymore in that yoga, but that I could return to it.
And Wendy Green just asked, yeah, what a question. How long did it take you? to get your mobility back, and then to start um, to start teaching yoga?
That is an excellent question.
Well, she was my co-host for a long time. You can count on Wendy for excellent questions.
Yes, Wendy is excellent. So I got my mobility back slowly, but it was in the first rehabilitation center that I started with yoga again. And that's where the concept of doing yoga got shifted, and accessible yoga was made available to me. So
Hmm.
while I was still wheelchair bound, that's when one of the physical therapists there, she heard me say that I thought I would never do yoga again, and then she like opened me up to doing yoga in a reclined position, doing modified positions, and having yoga meet me where I was at, and just adjust that instead of being something that I needed to get to, have it be something that would come to where I was, and meet me where I was at. So I my getting my mobility back was definitely a slow process over the year after the stroke, but yoga came back into my life post stroke, very shortly after. I think it was a couple weeks, 3 weeks maybe.
Well, thankful for that. And Wendy's next question was, um, did you have a support team? Well, I'm sure you did, but I would I would reach out and say that 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 physical therapist was possibly the greatest support member of your team. Um, and it's interesting. There's Wendy again. I love it. Wendy, thank you. Having yoga meet you where you were at, that is beautiful. It's true. And now, and now, now you help other young stroke victims, survivors. I don't like that word, victim. Stroke survivors. Forgive me for that awful word. Um, what what brought you to the realization that you could do for them what that particular physical therapist did for you?
I think it was a slow realization over the process of beginning, and then over the years, and recognizing how close yoga and Reiki were in my recovery journey. It was like we walked hand in hand through, like I said, the first year, the first 2 years, the first 3 years, and still to this day. And just realizing that I was doing yoga and it was so valuable through the recovery. And if there were other stroke survivors that, like me, were ending up in a situation where not only did they not know about the value and the benefits of
Hmm.
yoga, mindfulness, and Reiki practice, but having not having the knowledge that they could do it and have it be available to them, I wanted to come into that space and help bridge that gap to other survivors and also the yoga practice, so that it isn't something that is seen as challenging or elusive or unavailable for survivors wherever they're at.
Wherever that, it's interesting because I don't know if it's the case anymore. Now that yoga is available in conversations and in practice, but I suspect there are still some who picture yoga, and I have several friends who practice yoga, and to them, yoga is standing on their head, um, which is a fine position to get into if that's what you want to do. But yoga to me has always been more about the mindfulness and the certainly the physicality that helps your body heal. Um,
Absolutely.
I have not made a banner of. Tell us your website, please.
My website is just my first name and last name. So it's www.ashleyvoth.ca.
Okay, let me. I want to write that. I want everyone to see this. Okay. Oh, there's your email address.
Perfect.
Voth.ashley@gmail.com, because I have a feeling that there are many who are um, who are watching and meeting you today who will want to connect. Um,
That would be wonderful.
AshleyVoth.ca. Well, your story is quite remarkable and quite beautiful and quite wonderful. How do you work with your clients now in this era of, well, it's almost, we're getting close to the end of this COVID era. How does one do Reiki virtually?
Yeah, so I was a very in-person person before. I liked in-person classes, in-person sessions. I really benefited from that dynamic, but this has opened a lot of doors with everything being virtual. I've met a lot of people that I hadn't met before, and yes, lots of virtual classes, and there's different pros. You know, I think virtual classes are more accessible too because a lot of people,
Yeah.
especially survivors that are fresh out of stroke, might not have the mobility or the transportation available to get somewhere. So virtual makes it even more accessible and comfortable and convenient for them. And I appreciate that. So it's been lots of virtual sessions, lots of Zoom meetings, lots of virtual Reiki sessions as well.
Are you seeing um, okay, first, how long, when did you realize that you could start bringing this to others? And in whatever amount of time that was, are you seeing results? Positive. Are you seeing that you have been a positive influence on these young survivors?
I am, and I think that okay, I think the realization was a slow process. It was, you know, because I still see myself as on the journey of recovery,
Hmm.
but along that way, I think that's when I started seeing survivors that could benefit from this perspective of being able to see that recovery journey somewhat in hindsight. So and offer that mentorship, that coaching, that assistance, that support through the journey as well. And I've seen that it is inspirational and it is an extra support because I feel like young stroke survivors feel so isolated and unfamiliar with the process to begin with, that in so many situations there isn't a lot of people that they can connect with and that they can relate to on the same level. There may be that similarity of stroke with some people, but with where you were at in your life when that stroke occurred, I think that's really relevant. And I
Hmm.
think that I've seen a lot of young stroke survivors really benefit from connecting with somebody who shares a few more similarities and can have that alignment through the support that they're finding.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. We think when we think of stroke survivor, um, yes, our minds go to the elderly, at least my mind does. Um, my husband, who is not elderly, because I'm not elderly, so he can't be. Um, but I'm meeting more and more young stroke survivors. You are all out there, and you all need your community. You need to community, meaning commune. You need to be together. Um, Before we go, we're running out of time. I love this. Okay, one word or phrase that you would use to help a young person heal as you have done. Quick without
One word,
thinking. One word.
one word would be a bit tight, but you are strong. If it's one word, I would say strong, but you are strong. There is way too much self doubt, I think.
Yeah. And you
In
would explain
so
what
I would,
strong means, though. You can get
yeah,
there.
and with that too, just like connecting with that, yeah, that ebb and flow and that balance, and
Yeah. You are strong. You are balanced. Um, I'm so pleased to meet you and to be able to share you, Ashley, with everyone who is watching the show and will be watching the show. Um, it will be live on our Facebook page immediately after we say bye bye. Um, your gingerbread. Tell me about your gingerbread.
oh,
Why did you bring a gingerbread recipe?
it's amazing. I have some here. I did a different frosting than what was included in the recipe, but it is delicious. I love the spice and I love the sweet potatoes in there. That is one of my go-to and one of my favorites.
It's also very healthy
It
recipe.
is.
There's
It is.
no added sugar. I left mine in the kitchen. But yeah, gingerbread is my favorite, and to know that I can have gingerbread um, without gluten, without lots of sugar, without is amazing. So thank you for bringing that. That recipe will be posted on our Facebook page as soon as we say bye bye. I will tell you, all of you, that next week, and Ashley, I think you'll enjoy meeting him. Eric Jorgensen will be our last guest on the Caregivers Bakery for season one. And his thing is, well, he is the special needs navigator. You don't know what you don't know, and he didn't know what he didn't know when his wife passed, and when he was taking care of his son. And now he's out there helping others, and he's a delight to meet. I'm glad he'll be with us, and he'll be the one to end season. Well, that you and then Eric were the ones to end season one. Um, Remember to get Eric's recipe ahead of time. It's very interesting. Um, Email me at CJ Golden, author CJ Golden. It's here somewhere and it doesn't matter. Author CJ Golden at gmail.com. Author CJ Golden at gmail.com. And I will send you the recipe in advance so you can make it and taste it with us. And I will add you to our mailing list so you'll know what's going on and you'll be able to stay informed with the Caregivers Bakery. Um, Ashley, thank you. We know, along with you, that caregiving is not a piece of cake. Um, we're here, our community is here to help you find the sweet spot. Ashley, thank you for being with us.
And
Ashley
thank you
Voth,
so
everyone.
much for having me.
This was delightful. Um, your spirituality and your strength will keep us all going through no matter what. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next Thursday. Bye.